reservation to the House.
I recognise the Honourable Member Andrew Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that you recognise me. Even though this week I haven't had a haircut, Mr. Speaker, you'd still recognise me. That's very good. Mr. Speaker, I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First in the Conservation Natural Heritage Protection Bill, and we also commend the member Jackie Dean for bringing this to the House. This certainly has a great deal of merit, this bill, in that it addresses many concerns that most New Zealanders have, certainly those that are conscious of the effects on our flora and fauna, and in terms of our wildlife and the risks that they suffer. Mr. Speaker, it was very interesting that a few weeks ago I attended a conference in Auckland. It wasn't to do with wild animals, it was to do with companion animals. But at that conference involving the SPCA, it was made very clear to all in attendance that we are the guardians of animals. Animals cannot speak for themselves. They are unable to stand up for themselves, and that humans are their guardians. And it's interesting that the phrase in terms of ownership of animals, they no longer talk about owners of cats or dogs or owners of horses and other animals. They talk about guardians of the animals. And in that respect, and in terms of this bill, in terms of wildlife, we are also all guardians of their well-being. And therefore it's very worthy that this bill does address many of the issues where we have had the likes of the geckos in New Zealand being spirited out of the country by foreigners for illicit gain, where we have had other species of endangered animals and birds being also taken out of the country. This does address that by greatly increasing the penalties against those that would perpetuate those crimes. It also, in terms of fauna and what would happen in terms of the natural environment. But, Mr. Speaker, in so doing, and while it's very worthy that this National Party member has brought this to the House, and we do congratulate Jackie Dean for doing this and standing up for her principles and standing up for wildlife, we do have concerns, New Zealand First does, in terms of the wider picture. We've already heard in the chamber today and through the previous readings of this bill that there are concerns out there about the significant cutbacks by this government in terms of the Department of Conservation and the flow-on effects in so many areas. So it is a situation where there's giving on one hand but taking on the other. This is very much a bill that is giving on one hand and helping that situation, but on the other hand we are seeing cutbacks. And my colleague Tracy Martin brought to my attention the other day at caucus the situation of the great spotted kiwi, the largest kiwi in the country, and where that was highlighted on a television program the other day, and the effects on the great spotted kiwi, which are found in northwest Nelson and on the northern part of the west coast. They are an endangered species. In fact, they are listed as being vulnerable, and where the New Zealand Community Trust, it was shown, is struggling with funding to continue providing its hatching arrangements and its incubation arrangements to ensure that the eggs and the young chicks survive the important first year or so through to when they can be released into the wild, so that they are not eaten by predators in the wild, and also don't suffer as a result of the habitat destruction in parts of that area. So it's very concerning to hear from the people likes of the New Zealand Community Trust that they do wonder in the next 2 or 3 months, when their funding is getting increasingly smaller, how they will survive and how they will continue to do the work on behalf of the great spotted kiwi, because they say funding from the Department of Conservation is regrettably reducing because of the pressures on the department with their reduced budget. And it's not necessarily the department's fault. They are being given strictly controlled budgets, reduced overall budgets across the whole of New Zealand, and their frontline staff and people out there actually in the wild are very much under pressure to provide the services they do with the funding that they are provided with. And this particular instance, where the great spotted kiwi has declined by 43% in the last 45 years, is quite alarming. And I think every New Zealander would be shocked if they thought that there wasn't sufficient funding to support the likes of the work of the New Zealand Community Trust ongoing, with assured funding to support that, so that this largest kiwi in New Zealand, the very largest with the largest eggs, is assured of a healthy and long existence in New Zealand. However, having said that, we acknowledge that other parts of this bill do address the important areas of smuggling. Worldwide, Interpol have estimated that the smuggling of endangered species is in the order of, and it's quite a large figure, but anywhere between $10 billion and $20 billion a year worldwide in endangered species. New Zealand has the unique situation, because we are such an isolated country, where we were cut off from Gondwana land and the rest of the landmass many millions of years ago, that we have species here that are unique to New Zealand, but which are prized and sought after in other parts of the world. Therefore, in that respect, Mr. Speaker, we are the guardians. As I said at the beginning of my speech, we are the guardians of those species. We are New Zealanders who must ensure that those species are well protected. We are very proud to live in a country where we are so fortunate to have such a wonderful array of flora and fauna that the rest of the world does envy. And so this bill does go a long way to address that. It will ensure that the right message is sent out worldwide, that New Zealand will come down heavily on people who break our regulations, and that any body, corporates or people, individuals or anybody else participating in any activities of that nature will be heavily fined. Also, in terms of marine mammals, it's good that this is addressing the marine mammal situation again. We've seen some terrible situation with the clubbing of seals, seal pups, and other terrible acts such as that. Again, this addresses that situation, and it's long overdue, because those atrocious sort of situations cannot be allowed to continue. So, Mr. Speaker, we do commend Jackie Dean for bringing this through. This is a good, worthy members' bill to be supported by all members in this House. New Zealand First is very pleased to support it. We see this as a valuable addition to the conservation estate, and we commend it to the House.
I call Paul Goldsmith.
Mr. Speaker, very